and they're getting these messages that they're worthless or that someone's coming after them, and there's nobody there to respond for them. Because they're the ones that you might see in a day, but don't have any telling type behaviors. And some of the weirdest things have happened from the kids not in that particular class.
We had a question over here.
Oh.
We'll deal with some of the questions.
Oh, yeah, sorry. It's not like me to be quiet, so.
I was wondering.
The time may have passed for this, but I think Martha and I dodged a big bullet by, for one thing, I don't know why a 9-year-old needs a cell phone, or even a 15-year-old. We told our kids, if you want a cell phone, then you know what, you need a part-time job to pay for it. And our kids didn't get cell phones till they were in college. And by that time, they were a legal adult, and they're a little wiser. Why do kids need these phones? And sorry, Janice, I know.
They're sold in the name of safety.
And
the number one thing that will happen is, oh, it's a safety, but your kid's sitting there playing a game.
Unsafe, though.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if anybody's done a survey of your 55% more in your kids. I take it all those phones have been parent supplied and paid for. And
yes.
Service. Yeah. And I don't get that. I think a kid can be quite safe because 3 of their best friends have phones.
And you know, I don't want to knock other people's parenting styles, as long as they're in touch with their kids and they're awake. But those are the same parents that you will find drop kids off at a mall because they've got the cell phone. They can be in touch at any time, and it's a long time before they're picked up again. And, you know, all the people that we dodge as we walk into the movies on Friday or Saturday night seem to be wandering into things. This just seems to be the question nobody asks.
But you know what's interesting? It brings up an interesting thing that's going on with a friend of mine right now who has young children. Her eldest is 6 and her youngest is 4. And she recently got a divorce. The kids have a cell phone so that they can communicate with mommy when they're with daddy and vice versa. And I bit my tongue for as long as I possibly can, but you know what I mean? What are we teaching them? You know?
And if it was only a phone,
this is a 6-year-old with his cell phone.
That's the other part about dropping the kids off at the mall, and this is getting a little bit off topic, but it's this umbilical cord, this virtual umbilical cord, that we don't allow our children to have any freedom or experience the real world without being tethered to home.
There's a very gray area around grade 6, 7, and 8. And you'll be very scared to know that the girl aggressive bullying, we're tacking down to grade 4 now, not just where it was coming on in grade 6 before. All of the interesting social dynamics between girls, many of which are bullying type behaviors. But boys who are now being watched and tethered, and there is a parental buy-in to a child these days that I believe is much more significant. You know, my child would never tell me a lie. Your child is grade 8 boy. You know, and then there are the variants of that. The boy reports to the mom, oh, well, I happened to be riding my bike through Vineland and I happened to see the other kids at the payphone at Busby's. And they were doing crank calls. And I stopped and I really wondered whether or not I should be involved. Darn right you were involved. But this is how he spun the story to mom. And of course, because he's never told a lie to his mother before, it's all just buy-in. And it's a way to label other kids as others. My kid won't do this, but others will.
We have a question here.
Yeah, I was just curious, when you have problems, like for instance, you're saying maybe there's a problem with Facebook or whatever, parent comes and drops the stuff on your desk and says this is what's been going on or whatever. Through all these things that have happened, I guess from your experience, what would you guys what do you see that's frightening, I guess, with maybe the parents you're dealing with? Are they in denial that Jimmy or Tammy can do this? Is it lack of education? Do they not care? Like what kind of one from your end, what kind of feedback you would say is maybe the biggest problem from your end experiencing it?
It's lack of parenting, just giving them free reign to, you know, be on the computer until 4 in the morning. Nobody's monitoring them. The computer now becomes the babysitter. It used to be the TV. Now it's a computer and video games. And even with video games, you could probably speak more to this, but I understand that you can play against one another, and you have a headset and you talk, and you know, random people can add you and so on. And I don't know if that in itself is a privacy concern, but
I'm not a gamer, but yeah, the technology's there. It's there was a study done where they were saying how kids 12 to 18. The claim was that they were becoming less social because they're playing video games and whatnot. But actually what the study found out was that they were more social. They were getting together, playing, you know, going to each other's houses, playing the whatever types of games together, where they're actually being more social because of the video game. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. Yes, you get a little bit, you're getting where things are, there's so many things for them to do that you just don't see kids going out and riding bikes as much anymore, or playing hockey like when I was a kid. But
yeah, I just find that there's, every case that I've dealt with, there's been a lack of bit where you say what to the parents, well, you don't say to it to them, but you say, you know what are you thinking to allow, this would never have happened, you know, had you been monitoring at least. You know, sitting down with your kids and putting limits on things, and it's just, they're off in their own world doing their own thing, and not worrying about what the kids are doing. And I don't know, I was raised quite conservatively and had strict parents, so maybe it comes as a shock to me every time I see this, but it can all be prevented if we educate the kids and if there are some limitations placed on it.
We've got 3 questions. Janice, and then you, and then Ann. Janice?
I did with another fellow from Social Media Club about a year ago. We went up to Crossley and Fonthill and did a debate. Is Facebook bad for society? And in the end of it, we just talked in general about social media and bullying. And one of the things that I thought was really interesting on the positive side is that kids were saying that they felt more likely to intervene and say, stop, that's not right what you're doing, because they could do it online, they didn't have to do it in person. Is that something that you're finding as well?
Yeah, you do see that, but then what ends up happening is you have the kids sticking up for one another, which is great. But then it becomes a private chat between the people who are having the disagreement, and then they just flood that person's inbox with private messages. So if they get scolded,
you're sort of bullying
on the wall.
Then in a way.
Yeah, well, they go behind the scenes then and do that. But one of my concerns, getting back to you know, worrying about school shootings and so on, and something that we really push when we have our lockdowns here is that is one time when there are no cell phones whatsoever. There was an incident in the school in the city who went in on a lockdown, and there were so many kids who hopped on their phones that it shut the communication lines. I don't know the exact terminology for that, but it shut down the communication lines, so that now it becomes a safety issue. You saw that in 9/11 too. People weren't able to get through because you have a flooding of the system, and then you don't know what's going on. You have panicked, you got to think about, or I think about, yeah, if we have all our kids, a real emergency happens, and we don't control those cell phones, we could be in big trouble, because now you have panicked parents coming in, whose kids have now texted them what else, who knows, and you know, they're being misinformed and not knowing the situation, and you know, you have the emergency services who are trying to do their job, but can't because now they're having to deal with all this interference.
That's an excellent point.
Part of the resource component of the net and being net connected is also that there are also resources for kids out there too. And so there is the hope that they can connect even if they don't feel that there's someone they can connect to at school. Or they can connect to the principal, or they can connect to a teacher by using their email address, or like using some form to reach out rather than coming in person if that's a thing.
What I'm understanding from you guys right now is that the bullies are the one, or the people who are being bullied are the ones who are coming in and providing you guys with this evidence, but do you think it would be helpful if there was a program that allowed everyone who is maybe witnessing that bullying being happen? Like you said, the videos that were posted, each person had about 1,000 friends. So any one of those 1,000 friends could have come and reported it, and it could have been resolved way faster.
Yeah, a lot of students are coming in. It's friends of students and the one who's being bullied. They're pretty good about that. I would say we have a lot of, the nice part about social media is that you have concrete evidence. So students will come in and say, this happened, we can look at it and we can say, well yeah, we can do something about this now because we have it right there. You'll see it often with fights that are videotaped and then posted to YouTube. We now have evidence of that. We can hit on everyone, whereas before it used to be based on hearsay. Oh, so-and-so was there, involved so-and-so. Now we have the actual evidence, so
pretty
it's
soon,
beneficial that way.
Pretty soon the regional police will be putting cameras downtown, and that's not everyone likes that idea, and they will not have an officer watch the cameras, but they record everything for several days, and if there's a crime they go back, and that's like the printout from Facebook or Twitter, all used in court. And the police and 911 now know where I am. They see it on their system because of this thing. Anne.
Well, what I'd like to do now is to ask Glenn if after listening to all this, if he had some really practical suggestions for what you might do.
Sure.
I think that would be really helpful.
Yeah. In terms of just cyberbullying in general, or protecting your kids in general?
Probably all of the above.
Okay. The idea of putting computers into a common area, yeah, I like the suggestion up to a certain point, and I don't know what age that would really be, I guess. That's up to the parent, but I'm just trying, as a, maybe 13, 14 might be a good spot to start letting them put the computer back in. Everyone's, I'm sure, heard of probably NetNanny or whatnot, these software pieces of software you can put on the computer to keep your kids off certain things, and they can be gotten around quite easily. But there are other avenues that actually do it right at the modem or the router, where you can actually have routers that we do it for a lot of our clients for web filtering. They don't want their employees going to social media sites and all this stuff while they're at work. But you can do the same thing for kids at home, where you can say, okay, well, they don't get to go to pornography and all that stuff. And what happens is a lot of the websites have really gotten to the point where they've given out exactly what type of sites they are, and it's quite easy to block stuff. And really, I think the best way is to talk to your kids, understand what their ideas are, and instead of saying, don't go here, don't go here, don't go here, don't go here, maybe talk with your kids and make a whitelist. Rather than doing a blacklist, suddenly you're going to get a big long list of where they can't go. Maybe work on a whitelist, saying where do you like to go, and then set those in the router, and saying yes, you can get there. Also use a lot of the consumer routers these days have time periods, right? Set aside time where your son or daughter is able to use the computer at a set specific time, more for their homework or whatnot, or give them, and again with these routers you can set it where it's You can set a time for, they can only go to these sites, set a time when they can only go to specific other sites where more entertainment. You'd have to give me something a little bit more specific. I guess that's kind of the generalized, but make sure the phones are parental. I will get that information out, both for Twitter, Facebook, all the social media sites to keep you informed.
Sounds like to me,
Talk to your kids.
I don't know if it's from a high school initiative, if you're saying the parents are kind of lackadaisical for parenting, but maybe initiate where you have a parent night where they can learn how to do all these things on the computer. Because, I mean, I use my phone, but to be honest, to tell you how to block and do all other stuff, and I probably among many that don't know, don't have that sort of sophistication. So rather than deal with it, we just say, oh well, well, they'll be fine, or they'll work it around, or to go ask your brother or something. And we're passing the buck. So maybe that's something like that where you came in and you do a talk to whoever shows up, hopefully a lot of people, and run them through a bunch of slides. This is how you do this. This is how you do that. I don't know.
Yeah. Interestingly, we put this meeting out, and last week was postponed because of we only had 10 people sign up. We thought this would be a huge group coming here, which is why Martha arranged for the cafeteria, and we put it out all over the place. And we have people here who are really interested, but I'm quite surprised that we didn't get a much larger crowd who want to know that kind of information.
Not to make it that dramatic, but I think what would work, Glenn, maybe is do that, but maybe offer as part of the evening to hack into somebody who volunteers their phone. Or get somebody to bring that.
Yeah. I wasn't ready for that. I didn't bring all my equipment.
Exposing your skills.
Yeah.
No, seriously, I think it would wake a lot of people up to see how vulnerable.
Oh, I agree. But I would really like to, if the schools want to know about this stuff, I'm happy to help any way possible. Security is no longer. It should not be an afterthought. It should be, look, this is what can happen, and this is what, the repercussions you were talking about, what can happen if you break that security. So.
I think in terms of, sorry, to get back to you about an age to set, we can go back to educational theorists. I think it was Piaget, age 15 is when kids can start in and around that age, I should say. When kids can start realizing real consequences. And I can, I was thinking to myself, what would I put that? I say 15, 16 is when they start to realize, ooh, this is what can really happen. But before that, it's almost like they're oblivious. They just can't, their mind doesn't go there.
One of the challenges we have with everybody is we are all publishers with this. We are all experts with this. There is a general lack of respect for the institutions. I think that's fair to say. And so kids will challenge their teachers, they'll challenge their parents, the parents will challenge the teachers. It's kind of like Wild West. But it's just my thought. If we teach the kids critical thinking skills, what power does this have? Instead of saying you can't use it. When my kids were very young and one of them comes home and wants to get a tattoo, I really can't prevent what he or she does in their private time. But I did say, imagine the people who are behind this. That guy in Manhattan who's making a lot of money off this business. When they think that there's a power greater than them, sort of a commercial power, then they smarten up a bit. Our son was on Facebook, he quit Facebook. Just a waste of time because you get sucked into it. So I think you can talk all you want about what a school can do, what a parent can do, until we start helping the kids understand that there is a world behind this, then they will not. We could fill this place with 12-year-old kids and they would disagree with, they'd nod as if they agree, but they really disagree.
But just for the awareness, is there not a program that's designed from the school boards to create the awareness to these students?
No, there is a media class that we offer here, a media studies class, and I know that it's covered there, but it's an open level course, and 60 kids take it a year. So
why wouldn't the school board make it mandatory? I attended a session in Grimsby, in fact, at Sacred, I'm not from the region, I'm sorry. But
Our Lady of Fatima?
no, anyways, a high school there. And it was a Drive for Life program. It was mandatory for all grade 11 students. And they had different groups of, I think it was 20 or 30 students at a time. And they went through the different rooms, and they explained the dangers of date rape, drugs, or influence while driving, drugs while driving, and others. And the kids didn't have a choice. So at least when they left there, they had an idea of some of the dangers that exist. Well, I find that this is very dangerous.
Yeah, in terms of a curriculum, it's not in any of the curriculum to, the ministry doesn't say it's something you have to teach. They touch upon it in some of the English courses when they go to the, in the media units, but not as much as I think they should. But that's why at this specific school, you know, we're having the ICE unit come in and talk to the kids, and that will be.
But that's on a voluntary basis?
Yep.
And
there's
that's
nothing
to Bruce's
for,
point on, is that what you were asking earlier? How many people would actually show up?
This would be for the kids. This would be to inform the kids, because the thing is when it comes to, you can look at it as like almost like parent-teacher interviews.
Okay.
You get the parents that you don't really need to see because their kid is doing great. You never see the kids whose parents you really need to see. They're the ones you always have the hardest time getting in contact with as well. So it's that type of thing. The ones who really should be here, who it is the Wild West for the kids on the internet. Unfortunately, this type of thing, you know, like I said, they're too busy doing their own thing to worry about what their child is doing. But then they come up with, you know, fists in the air as soon as, you know, their child gets in trouble. So we're going straight to the root. Talk to the kids who it affects, right?
And if you think about it the same as speeding, people will speed until they're caught, and they'll correct their actions, and then they'll go back to doing it temporarily. And no, I don't mean that to be all gloom and doom. In elementary schools, we do an awful lot of character development stuff around bullying as a general topic. And so we have programs like Tribes, Champs, like the names of the programs exist out there. The Regional Health Unit has just come up with a program that they're recommending for elementary schools, where each class will create their own set of ground rules around bullying. So when you see bullying as a bystander, this is what, you know, what's your catchphrase that's going to remind people that this is what it is. There's some really creative stuff going on out there that's making it happen. But again, it's my teachers who, it took me 4 years to get all of them Tribes trained. They're all good people with professional development agendas of their own, where they're determining their own level of growth, and it could be in their subject area, it could be in something else. So, you know, we're trying to build safe and caring schools and safe and caring communities, but it's that speeding thing. You know, something will happen, and okay, we're thinking about it, but then we'll lapse back into our normal behaviors.
The Privacy Commissioner of Ontario is on TVO a lot, and the last time I saw her, she said she goes into not hundreds, but dozens of high schools a year to talk about privacy for the kids. And she said at the end of her lecture, she asked who now will increase their privacy settings on Facebook. She said a lot of girls' hands will go up. She says it's rare to see a guy's hand go up. They see it as being tough, I can take anything. And then you put that child with a parent, and the parent's car surfing, you know, so it's tough. We had a question here.
I just want to go back to Glenn, because you're asking really specific questions. Okay, so let's pretend, we'll pretend I'm a grandmother. I have a 4-year-old grandmother. She's already using a computer. She's going to Sesame Street websites, all this stuff. If you could take me by the hand and say, okay, Liz, this is how you're going to protect her. Quote the steps. Because she watches her mom on Facebook. And I think one of the reasons I was motivated to come, because my daughter actually is quite addicted to Facebook, my granddaughter's mother. And when Glenn told me that those photographs were tagged, I think my daughter has something like 800 photographs on her site. When he told me those photographs were GSP tagged, I almost fell into my chair. So
we were ready to raise the club and start swinging.
So what would you do?
Wow.
Because you were
Put me on the spot.
That's a little
Because
I don't like raising other people's kids. Jeez.
Because you were talking about the router, which
Yeah, I would definitely do that. You know, in days gone by, I would say, you know, maybe look at a Macintosh as opposed to running Windows, because it's not as exploitable. But if everyone has heard, there was a botnet in all Macintoshes. Over 600,000 Macintoshes were just infected. Those days are long gone. These things. And it was brought up before, we were talking about phones, but Apple's really trying to push these things in schools because of the digital textbooks and whatnot. Being able to have these used as a tool, an educational tool, and there's lots of educational stuff that Apple puts out on their App Store. These things are a lot harder to hack than a computer. You'd be scared if I actually showed you how quickly we can do computers when we do companies. You'd be absolutely frightened. These things, a lot harder. It takes us a lot longer to figure these things out. Apple has really gone, and I want to say Apple because Android's not quite as up to it, but they're getting there. Apple's really protected the way things are done on their iOS devices. I think an iPad that is properly parental controlled, that gives them interaction, and then on the back end, something like a NetNanny sort of system, a router that has that features in it, to block the rest of your computers. Being aware of, you know what, how many people have Windows PCs here? Okay. How many people think they're actually have been hacked? Anybody know they've been hacked? Okay. I can, out of you, I can guarantee probably about 25% already have been hacked and don't know it. But that's what you really have to be scared of, not only for cyberbullying, because the kids are going to get into other people's computers to get some of these photos that maybe they're keeping private, even on their phones or whatnot. You know, for cyberbullying, you can get away with murder if you know what you're doing.
So you're thinking...
And I don't murder anybody, by the way.
You're thinking the best bet is basically go to the source where the information hub where all this stuff comes through and stop it before it even gets to you.
Well, I don't want to say stop, but filter.
Well, filter.
Really talk to, I would say talk to your kids and find out exactly what their interests are. Be part of their educational growth. Understand what they want to do, right? And not just being an astronaut or a firefighter or whatever, you know. But help them, and it goes back to being part of it in a public area with the computer. Make it part of, you know, part of your day where you actually help them out and show them how to use a computer. And I know that most people are, you know, usually it's kids showing the parents how to use the computer, but maybe using, again, I forget who brought it up, but intellectual thinking, being able to not just, okay, I know how to do something, but actually using Google as a resource tool to find out information. Being able to use Google, I don't have to be a doctor, but I could find out pretty much anything I need to about a surgery, right? I can figure out anything, and the kids can do it too. So really, really, I would say block the back end, start using the devices that are a little bit more secure and a little bit more interactive and educational, especially if they're going to be going into schools with digital thing. And let's face it, it comes down to be a parent. I can't, there's no technology for that.
One of the things that, when you talk about parents, the police don't really want to talk about it. It's hard for schools to talk about parents. And so we've got, you know, well-meaning people at home who just don't know some of this stuff. And that's the problem. How does everyone in this room help those people understand?
You Google it.
I'm
just kidding.
Yeah.
Well, you know,
I'm kidding, but.
Our son's doing his PhD at Toronto, and he says, you think that young people know a lot? He said they know this much. They know the names of the apps, but they don't know what's underneath it.
Yeah, that's true.
And he's sick of seeing the writing coming in, because kids are just, they think they can steal anything now and put it in their essay.
So what is he doing his thesis on?
The education system of Venezuela.
Okay.
Anyway, Janice?
Well, it's 10 to 7, so I'm thinking we'll wrap it up, and then if you have other questions, if you can, 3 of you can stick around for.
Maybe we could just have each of the panelists just have a closing comment, or maybe some advice for the community?
I think we've said it over and over again, and it bears repeating. Supervision, supervision, supervision. I think the guidance certainly, and being an active part of using technology with children and with young adults is important.
Again, I say the same thing. I use computers in my classroom every single day. It's instant information. It's, you know, if you're teaching the kids to go to the right sites to gain that information, then it's up to date. You go to our libraries, and it's unfortunate, but that stuff is so dated, you know, it's not worth them even reading. But by using search engines, whatever, and going to, you know, accessing good resources on the internet, the amount of information a kid can gain is at their fingertips, and you really see their interest peak too. If they have a question in class, let's look it up, and it becomes almost fun, and their curiosity gets piqued by that. I think social media, just like everything, has its pros and cons, and we just have to be aware of that. And I think the reason why it's becoming more so of an issue for kids, again, goes back to their capacity to understand and their critical thinking skills not being as developed as ours are. And so we have to protect them, just like we would, for example, the other day I had a conversation with my husband. He's a police officer. There's a gun in our house sometimes. And, you know, we're thinking about having kids. My first question to him was, how are we going to protect our kids? And interesting thing, he said, and I never thought about it, but he grew up, you know, with a father who, you know, did target shooting, whatever. There was always a gun in the house. He says, you don't make it a curiosity. You inform them. I never thought about that, but he goes, it was never, my dad told me how to use it, educated me on it, I knew what it was capable of, and I never played around with it. The kids that are killing themselves with guns are the ones who it gets tucked away and not talked about. So I think just taking the time to sit down with kids, informing them as best possible. We can't control the parents from the school level, but we can, you know, constantly reinforce with kids and inform them about the possible dangers. So there is a good side and a bad side, and it's just finding a nice little common ground. Bullying has existed prior to social media. It exists now. It's just changing form, and we just have to stay ahead of it. So.
Thanks, Angela. Glenn?
One word: communication. Whether it be from the schools to the parents, from the parents to the kids, from the schools to the police. Just communicate, get the information out there. Education is, it's not just for the children. Like, we've got to educate ourselves too. I've got to constantly keep up to date with what's happening out there, so that I can help out schools and whatnot of things that are changing. Just communicate that information. Don't let it be it's only you that needs to know it. Let everybody know it as well. That's the whole part of social media, right? Let everybody know. Use social media to your benefit to get the information out.
Part of being alive in Niagara is that we have a ton of meetings to go to. And very often those meetings end and nothing happens. So maybe we could, in our own way, sort of promise to ourselves that tomorrow we'll talk to somebody about this, about social media. I think this has been great tonight. I think the panelists have been terrific. The questions have been good. I'd like you to join with me in thanking them.